Well, good evening, everybody. I am sitting in Los Angeles, where much of Los Angeles is on fire tonight. If you're watching the news, some called me and questioned whether we should go forward with tonight. But we are in a good spot here in our storeroom, our warehouse, our Zoom room, away from the fire. And I know that some people are in similar conditions. But there are some people here in Los Angeles that are in a world of hurt. And I would just want to make sure everybody knows that we are sensitive to that. And, the thought of canceling a program um, just it doesn't really occur to me in these circumstances. But I'm here and trying to offer help to those people that I can help. But it is a really scary moment for a lot of people in Los Angeles, and it's not going to be an easy time period. So, pay attention to some things. We have a resource guide that's going out tomorrow on an email for people if they need help or they get in a situation where they all of a sudden find themselves needing help. That's when you need those resources. So we're just going to make them a click away on an email. But it's pretty crazy bad. The air, the sky, the sunset, the sunrise. It looks like an apocalyptic moment here in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of people that are really having a hard time. So to those people, we are hoping for good news to come soon, and we are here in thoughts and prayers, and we are also paying attention and trying to help. In so doing, some of our events, like in the years past, it always seemed like fire hit the wine country right before a couple of my big events, one of them the Stars of Cabernet. Well, I moved the Stars of Cabernet from November to the end of January, and here we are with a fire right before Stars of Cabernet again. So we are definitely going to bend that event to support some sort of a charitable angle for fire victims. We're going to work with the Beverly Hills Fire Department. I have a cousin who's a fireman there, so we have a way to get that to be accomplished. Um, and we're going to invite some firemen to be our guest at the event as well to show appreciation. It's going to be a really difficult time for a lot of people. But this is part of the magic of living in one of the most beautiful places on the planet. We have moments like this, a price of living in paradise, as they say. And so, we also, all go on with our lives and find ways to deal with these tragedies, and hopefully, you and your families are all safe and in a good spot. So, with that, soon we will raise a glass of champagne to coming out on the other side of this moment. But despite my somber mood, we have some amazing stuff to talk about tonight. And champagne is one of my favorite topics. It is something I care deeply about. I've just recently returned from an amazing trip to the Champagne area, and had a great visit with Guy Charlemagne. And so it was part of the inspiration behind going to the trip. And we're going to learn a lot tonight. We're going to take a look around and ask some questions. We have a really fantastic expert on the Zoom with us, and we're going to go through quite a bit of information. Now, if anything happens, the power goes out. I am also, that's up in the upper hand corner, the picture of Rex Pickett. That's my phone. And if the Wi-Fi goes out, I'm going to try to do this from my phone, but Zoom doesn't work well without Wi-Fi. So I will make a video and send it out to everybody if we go down, and that's how I intend to fulfill this moment. We've got bottles of champagne sent Northern California, Southern California, Southern LA, Santa Monica. Lisa, you're near things over there. I'm sure you can hear things over there. Ray Marie, are you up in San Francisco right now, or are you in LA?
I'm in San Francisco, but of checking on friends who are very close to being evacuated and somebody who we believe has been evacuated, but we can't reach him. So it's pretty scary. Yeah, really bad.
We just increased the evacuation zone right through Hollywood. Uh,
Wow.
Fires now going through Runyon Canyon, and so that's pretty nuts.
Yeah,
And it usually starts on the fringe areas and kind of stays out there, but
right.
now it's in the heart of Hollywood. So, uh, so we send our best to everybody and hope
Has
you're.
the wind died down?
Yeah, in my area, yes. I
Mhm.
don't know. Lisa, is it windy over there?
It's still windy in Santa Monica.
Yeah. I heard that it's supposed to kind of calm down a little bit tonight, but I don't, the wind, probably the fire is creating its own wind. And the closer you get to the fire, the more extreme it is. But I'm in Monterey Park. We're between the 7, 10, 10, and 60 area in a little warehouse district. It's 9 minutes from downtown LA where I live, and downtown LA doesn't allow anything to grow. So, except for skyscrapers. So, the lush brush that we all have throughout Los Angeles from an incredible amount of rain last year, I think is really contributing to what is happening right now. So, our special guest is down in Newport Beach, and she's going to try to come on board when she can here. She's having some energy electrical issues. But Sriti, are you able to chat with us at this time?
I'm on here. I'm in Laguna. I'm on here. We're having rolling power outages, I think, because we're in the red now.
Wow.
So we're having so it keeps going in and out. So I will do my best to be on
All
here.
right. All right. Thank you for that. Well, in the spirit of us holding things together, we're going to continue now and we'll go into our slideshow and begin this session of Zoom into Wine and our visit to Champagne. Uh, I have, like I said, Shriti is a very special guest and comes to us with a luxury background in wine, working for some of the best in the business, currently working with Arrow and Branch, but I met Shriti years ago when she was with another brand, and she also used to work with LVMH, and she has really an incredible marketing background. And Shriti, how did you get connected with Guy Charlemagne?
So when I worked at LVMH, Marie Charlemagne, who's the winemaker now that has taken over for her father, she was one of the winemakers at Veuve Clicquot, specifically when we were doing the La Grande Dame tour. So I met her then and was talking to her about some of my favorite champagnes that were outside of the LVMH world. And I mentioned Pierre Peters, and that happens to be her uncle. And then she told me that her father was Guy Charlemagne, and that was also another champagne that I loved. And so that's how that story came about. So just in August of this year, they asked me to be their U.S. brand ambassador. So I do that as well as Aron Branch. And then, like Ian said, I used to work for several wineries before, Morlaix, Opus One, LVMH, managing Krug and Dom Perignon. So it's my 10th year in the industry. So I love it.
Awesome. Well, that's quite a resume. I'm very fortunate to have you on the Zoom tonight. We're going to talk about this little teeny family grower producer. And I got to tell you, it doesn't surprise me that their uncle is Pierre Peters because he's probably, what is he, maybe a mile away?
Yeah.
Uh, and and so is everybody else that is in the town of Lemonniel. And it is just a really teeny, tightly knit, all boats rise in the harbor type of an environment. As Champagne goes, Champagne has had quite a run. Global warming has helped the champagne industry out. Their ethos has helped Champagne out. And now we're going to talk for a moment here about a single producer that makes just a teeny little bit of wine. I got a couple of pictures here to share, Shriti. I'm looking at a map, just kind of give everybody an orientation. We're not so far away from Ron's, about 45 minutes drive to Ron's, if you're not trying to do it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon with traffic. Um, and it is a predominantly white wine growing area. This is almost entirely Chardonnay in La Manille, and this is just become this is a Grand Cru village, and we have lots of teeny little producers in this little marketplace. Some of them you've heard of, many you've heard of, in fact. And as we're driving around the little streets, we see a little sign. Oh, look at that! And it's just a really adorable place to visit. Of course, I was there kind of scouting it out for a 2026 or 2027 trip to Champagne. So we're working on that right now, and some ideas came to mind. But Guy Charlemagne is uh, uh, like one of those brands. Like almost every small family grower producer that we met talked about them farming or somewhere around 10 to 12 hectares. That seems to be what these families were able to amass. And today, a hectare, is it a hectare or an acre? Because I was trying to decipher the French. I think it's 1.5 million for an acre of vineyards, and that is so much money. And so, to be able to go out and acquire additional vineyard land, first of all, it's all, there's none available. And when it does come up for available, it goes for an extremely high price that would really set you back, uh, maybe even a generation to be able to acquire a large chunk. So, Guy Charlemagne's got a nice history going back several generations. Um, but it was created in 1892. Is that right, Srini?
Yes, it was by Guy Charlemagne himself.
And there's been multiple generations, and then all of a sudden, the family has two daughters, not a son, but two daughters. You know, two daughters. They're marrying off. They're probably gonna lose their Charlemagne name at the end. Uh, and they both go to work in the champagne industry. One goes to work for Veuve Clicquot as a winemaker, and the other goes to work for Champagne Piper Heidsieck and uh, the 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 building of the brand Rare. And so she's the marketing arm, and the other sister is the winemaking arm. Dad retires, and the two daughters take over just as I'm arriving. They have left their careers and they're doing it going forward. It's a big moment for a small brand, huh? You go for it. Anytime you start talking, Shriti, I will shut up. I
No,
promise.
well, I want to just make sure Thomas has a question in the chat. I just want to make sure that he
Okay.
was able to ask his question before we got too deep.
Very good.
All right, this is Ian. This is a really basic question, and let me
Sure.
demonstrate. All my life, I have heard that this is the right glass. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, I can see
It's a
it.
tulip. And I recently, I think it might have been the wine column in the Wall Street Journal every week suggests that maybe a tulip is not the right way to enjoy champagne with, that we should use perhaps something that's closer to a Sauvignon Blanc glass. I'm interested, of course, in the expertise of you and Shriti here, who know far more about champagne than I do.
And if I can add to that also, Thomas, the coupe glass as well that bubbles through the top. I was going to ask a very similar question. What's the best way to drink it?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ian, do you want to go or do you want me to go? Because I definitely have an opinion on this.
Yeah, why don't you hit that one, and I'll take it from there.
So definitely not a coupe or a champagne flute. So interesting fact, flutes were actually created by caterers to for toasts and things for large events so that they would pour the least amount of champagne as quickly as possible. And coupes were created way back when as more of a centerpiece so they could flow the champagne. Even at Moet and Chandon, they use a lot of coupes, but it's really actually for presentation purposes, not for actually drinking, expressing the champagne. A lot of the times, because the coupe is so open, you lose a lot of the aromatics from it. And then the opposite with the flute, it's not allowing the champagne to breathe. The best thing, if you go out with anybody from Champagne, if you go out with industry people, we always ask for a white wine glass. It's the easiest, safest one. However, Thomas, the glass that you're using is perfect.
And you could drink champagne with a straw. It's fine with me.
Totally. Yes, you could drink it out of a paper cup. If you're really trying to dissect it and get all the aromatics and understand the surface area and blah, 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 then yes, you want the proper glass. If you're drinking it because you love it, then you can drink it out of anything.
Yeah, and I totally agree with everything you just said. And just one little factoid, the coupe glass was actually kind of rumored to be designed from the breast of Marie Antoinette.
Antoinette.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
It's fun to look at the bubbles, but
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. In fact, if you're doing a champagne fountain, that's the type of glass you
Yeah.
want to be able to use. They stack, and it is still fun for a ceremonial purpose and a champagne fountain purpose. But for the current marketplace where we're making really good champagne, and a couple back, sometimes we have to take a couple of steps back to be able to go forward. Champagne was always a sweet wine. And it didn't dry out until World War II when the sweet customers were put out of business. The Russians and the Germans drank their champagne sweet. The whole wine world started off sweet. Champagne kind of held on to it a little longer than most. Champagne was always trying to find a lane. I mean, they were really competing with Burgundy forever. And it was the Dukes of Burgundy, who lived and ran Europe out of bone that basically got Champagne thinking bubbles. And so the bubbles came in when the bottles got strong enough. The method champenoise was created by Dom Perignon. He's given credit for the perfecting the method traditional, and we grow from there. World War II, a huge event in the formation of drinking habits of champagne. And probably 50 years from now, we might look at the pandemic as like the next ring on the tree because champagne became like something else. It really spiked in sales and also in price point and demand. And we can really see, a huge elevation in the price of champagne. So what does that do? That creates this huge undercurrent of other regions coming in, other parts of the world making bubbles. Everyone thinks, okay, there's all this room between $0 and $100 a bottle for a bottle of champagne. We could make a bottle of bubbles and sell it for 30, 40 bucks now. And champagne kind of vacated that price point. So it's really, anywhere you go, whether it's Santa Barbara or Santa Rosa or into San Helena, you're seeing bubbles all throughout California because they can now make a wine that's less expensive than champagne or at least equivalently as at the same price. Going back to also, why is champagne exploding? It has a lot to do with the quality of the wine itself. These past 20 years of global warming and whatever you want to identify in there has really created some of the most amazing champagne vintages of all time. And now we've got so much quality fruit, and we're not necessarily forced to make non-vintage wines anymore. We're exploring these single vineyards, single vintages, and it's really expanded the champagne category. And we've taken it to another level of dryness now with the zero dose, drier and drier. And so there's just all these different options in Champagne, and it's really a dynamic time period for the formation. So now we can go back into our slideshow and really identify some moments here with the house, which is just ideally located in one of the most important appellations inside of Champagne. It is adorable. And Shruti, I'm not sure why every single little producer has kind of a similar format. And you could see this exact same setup in Burgundy also. It's like you pull in and they've got the house where the family lives and the cellar and this little courtyard. It's just a really sweet setup. And I hats off to Guy Charlemagne for having actually an attractive version. Uh,
Yeah,
the
it is. That is how a lot of the smaller producers are, because it's true to the point. You mentioned living quarters. A lot of them do actually live there.
and um, I was hoping that my photos would be right there. Let me just see if my photos got moved.
So
I
we
have
have
some
range.
photos I wanted to share as we went on a little tour with my wife and Marie going down the stairs into the cellar, and they have this beautiful cellar set up. A great little photo op there underneath the old Lemonil sur Auger sign. And then they just basically recently restuccoed a walkway. It's quite dramatic. I heard they just did a dinner on this walkway too.
They did. Yep, it was beautiful.
And here's the sisters talking to us about the appellation, about where their land holdings are, talking about their entire estate somewhere around. Am I overstating it when I say 12 hectares?
No, that's about right. And they are directly, the Champagne House is literally directly across the street from, across the road from Salon. So to give
Yeah.
you just an idea of location, it's pretty spectacular.
Was supposed to be one of my photos that I sent to my designer. Like as you walk out this driveway, you're looking straight across the street. That's the entrance to Salon. So it's definitely the neighborhood. So the wine that we're going to taste tonight is one of only a couple of different cuvées that the house makes. We carry two of them, Shriti. I think there's a third.
There's only two actually that are imported into the US, so you actually have both of them. A third one we're looking at to bring in next year.
And the two that I have is one is a vintage.
Yes.
I have the
So
2015, a very good vintage.
a single vineyard vintage too. So it's a special one because they do have multiple vineyards, but yes. And then the one that I believe everyone is tasting is the Grand Cru multi-vintage. I always say multi-vintage instead of non-vintage because it gives people the idea that it is multiple vintages blended in.
Gary's on our Zoom and Lisa's on our Zoom, and they've both been students for a while. So I'll ask everybody, when you go to open the champagne bottle, how many turns are on this little peg here? Do you remember how many turns? If you count, if you're a server, you want to know, you want to feel comfortable as you're talking about the specials and the salmon almondine and da da da, and you turn the dial 6 times and it unlocks the cage at the top of the bottle. Just a little point is, a lot of fine service restaurants have different ways they teach their staff to open the bottle. I teach people to go ahead and keep the cage on the top after I loosen it. I use that to grip the top. And then the most important part is to hold the bottom of the bottle and to turn it, not the cork. Just hold the cork straight and let the cork turn as you turn the bottle. Well, don't let the cork turn. Hold the cork firm enough that it doesn't turn. The bottle turns because you got a lot of bottle to hold in a small cork. And then the cork kind of lifts up by that pressure, and you can take some of that pressure off, kind of leaning it to the side so it kind of goes shh. Made a little bit of a sound, which is okay, but when you do it right, you can barely hear it, and that kind of tells the room that you know what you're doing. And those are my bottle opening tips. Now I poured myself a pretty good little taste here, Shriti. I'm gonna tell you that people tell me not to swirl your champagne. I have a hard time not swirling my wine. So I just, I say, you know what, I go ahead and swirl it anyway. I coat the glass and then I take a look, I let it set down, kind of settle in there. I notice the beating of the bubble. I see the color kind of give me some ideas about winemaking and maybe even varietal. Um, I see, some things in the color that kind of speak to the age of the wine. Um, and so now we'll let Shriti take it from here and tell us a little bit about what we're about to taste. Shriti, are you good there? Or did you go bye-bye? She's quiet on her side, so I'm going to assume that means she's not with us. Oh, I see her trying to come back in. Let me see if that happened. Shriti, I was just looking for you. I know you
I
should.
got kicked off and got back on.
Good job. Well, so I just opened the bottle of champagne for everybody, and now can you tell us a little bit about what we're about to taste and how it's made?
Sure. So, this champagne is going to give you some nice stone fruits, the aromatics. There is a lot of citrus. I don't get quite as much lime, but I get a lot of grapefruit out of it. I'm actually not, I should be tasting it right now, but I'm doing dry January. I know the appalling nature of that for somebody in the industry. Um, but there is a lot of that, some stone fruit and a lot of that citrus fruit, that freshness, which is what you would want for Blanc de Blanc, but also very indicative of the liminal region in general. There'll be a little bit of this nuttiness. Some people call it hazelnut. I almost get like this slight like dried almond, which goes into like a croissant brioche sort of flavor profile too on the finish. All the fruit is made from Grand Cru grapes in the Côte de Blanc, 100% Chardonnay from their vineyards. And again, we're in stainless steel tanks, 45%, between 45 and 55, depending on the release of this wine is base wine, and then the remainder is the multiple vintages that are blended together.
So what she was just speaking about there, every year they make a multi-vintage blend. And so we use the current vintage as a base and maybe 2 years prior and 2 years prior to that to accentuate the wine. Every house has a different formula, and some houses use really old reserves. Some houses keep it pretty youthful. How old are some of the old wines that maybe are used here? Do you know?
They don't go back too far, not unlike like Krug will go back 20 years sometimes. Very different because there's that champagne is much richer, using older vintages, and also because there's Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier blended into it, so now you're using different varietals. Whereas Guichard, to keep the freshness of the Chardonnay, they only go back max of like 5 years, or not even five vintages. So because not every year is necessarily a vintage made, so it is a blend of different years, but the max that they go back is around 5 different vintages.
Shruti, bear with me for one moment because a new feature that we're going to incorporate this year in our Zooms kind of go a little bit deeper on the actual grape varietal,
Mm.
is I really want to help people expand their ability to taste. And quite frankly, it's going to help me be a better teacher as well, just reminding myself on some of the markers. So, Jancis Robinson authors a book on the varietals and really kind of gives you the markers for Chardonnay. And there's a slide up here right now that talks about Chardonnay and some of the things to look for. And gives us some of the texture to be able to speak about not only Champagne, but Chardonnay's role in Champagne. Here, the wine, I'm showing another slide that has the 95-point James Suckling review, where he points out a couple of the, his reviews carry a pretty quick approach, but he does a good job of hitting some of those high marks that you just talked about, such as he talks about tarte tatin pastry or croissant, as you may have talked about, the chalk, obviously shining through, and there is a wonderful amount of salinity in these wines.
And you always want to make sure that when you have Blanc de Blanc to have that mineral or chalk flavor profile in there. It's really important. That's indicative of a very well made and well made, meaning the grapes came from a really ideal terroir for Chardonnay.
Excellent. Yeah, that comes from the better soils that are predominantly chalk, and that's one of the great markers of Champagne. And very few places in the world have that chalk soil to be able to use, and so that's really what the monks discovered was the secret for growing grapes up here.
One of the things I wanted to hit on that you mentioned, Ian, you're talking about like the growth of Champagne. I think for a while, I mean, COVID definitely did a number because people were like, celebrating, thinking the world was going to end, or celebrating that the world didn't end, however you want to look at it. But one of the things that I hope people took away from that and realized is Champagne's actually the only wine that can pair with anything, literally anything, any food. You can absolutely drink Champagne with steak. I used to do these dinners for Krug, and it was all Krug, and so rosé was what got paired with the beef courses, and it's 100% possible to do, and it goes quite well. So the versatility of Champagne, I also think, is a key thing that people tend to forget about. A lot of times people won't have a problem dropping $100 for a bottle of Burgundy, whether it's white Burgundy or red Burgundy or a Napa Cab, and then $100 for a bottle of Champagne starts to make people weary, but the Champagne actually has more versatility than any of those other wines.
Totally. My pro tip, if you will, would be if you're going to go out to dinner to a restaurant that allows you to have corkage, take Champagne.
Yes.
Restaurants, hotels, the wine that they mark up the highest is Champagne. And so you can really, bring something probably that's not already on the wine list and have, really big impact on your final bill. I always encourage restaurants. I don't know how you feel about Shreedy, but I don't mind corkage fee at all. In fact, I really get bummed out when a restaurant doesn't allow for corkage. That's become a bigger thing. And I want restaurants to embrace corkage, even if it's pretty significant. I mean, you're going to an expensive restaurant that has a high value on their table. There's a restaurant here in Los Angeles called Steak 48. And when they first opened, they did not allow for corkage. Now they're allowing it at $80 a bottle. And that seems like a lot, but their markup on their wines is like 5 times. You could still find value in paying an $80 corkage with a pretty decent bottle of wine and definitely a bottle of Champagne. So it is something I encourage to bring Champagne out. It'll make the night phenomenal. I love Champagne, as you mentioned, with so many different things. I eat sushi often, and absolutely my favorite wine with sushi or any type of Japanese meal is Champagne. And I think the Japanese flavor profile is just so magical. And I'm hoping our Japanese friend is watching the Zoom right now. Setsuko yes, she's on the Zoom from Japan. And so that's kind of cool.
My other pro tip I would say is if you are going to a restaurant and ordering a glass of champagne, ask for it in a white wine glass. You will get served more champagne that way too.
Oh, that's cool.
That's an industry pro tip.
Yeah, and you can tell the restaurant also if you're doing corkage and you're bringing champagne, ask them to bring you a white wine glass instead of the smaller champagne glass, and that will kind of indicate that you know what you're doing as well. And it's just a better glass to appreciate the beautifulness of the wine, to really be able to open that nose up, because the nose is, we can smell thousands of things, but we can only taste very few. Um, and champagne, as we've just been describing all these beautiful nuances that you're going to get in this glass, you get that in the nose, and the mouth just kind of confirms all that information. Um, I've got a video now of, in fact, the winemaker describing her wine. Can I play that now, Shruti?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
This is
we are
Marie
going
Charlemagne.
to taste the Reserve Brut. So the Reserve Brut is our emblematic cuvée from the domain. It's also a perfect introduction to our style and a perfect reflection of our terroir from Le Mesnil. So 100% Chardonnay, Grand Cru, coming from Le Mesnil. So on the first nose, it's very elegant, very delicate. It's about the white flowers, the citrus notes, some grapefruit, some lemon zest. So very elegant and very distinctive from Le Mesnil. And as the glass is getting warmer, you will get a bit more complexity. You will discover some toasted aromas, some nuts, some brioche, some croissant, and all these aromas are coming from the long aging on the lees. So the wine will has been aging for at least 5 years in our cellars, which is quite long for a non-vintage champagne. And in mouth, usually we speak about the verticality in the wine. So verticality is just a way to express what you can feel in mouth. Really straight, really pure, about the tension, a lot of salinity and minerality. And this verticality, this specific characteristic is coming from le terroir of Le Mesnil, which is 100% Chalk, pure Chalk. Enjoy the tasting.
There we go. I love the regalness of her French accent.
It's great, yes. So all the things that we basically spoke
Yeah.
about, chalk, minerality, those citrus notes. An important point that she brought up, I love to drink champagne cold, but it's actually better if you pour a little bit of champagne. That's also why those white wine glasses are so great, because they do actually warm up the champagne faster. But you want to actually drink it slowly so that as the temperature changes, you'll notice that the notes in the champagne will change too. So all of that brioche toastiness, the croissant that we were talking about, or the tartine, whatever, any of those aspects will actually come out when the champagne's warmer.
Fantastic. I'd love to open up the floor for questions. We've got bottles in a lot of places. I know a couple of people that are not watching the Zoom tonight, Shruti, that will watch the video later. Do you know, is this half bottle being made as a half bottle, or is it being poured from like a 3 liter?
No, it's being made as a half bottle. They just weren't imported into the US until I came on.
That's amazing. So they actually are making it one bottle.
Bottling it in half bottle, yeah.
Wow, that's so much work.
Yeah, it's a lot more. It's a lot more work. However, that's the benefit of working in a smaller house where you do have that control and that flexibility, allows those sorts of things to happen versus, if you worked at a very large house, then it's a production chain.
So does the flavor change between the half bottle and the
Yes.
full bottle?
Yes, and same with the Magnum. And that's across not just champagne, but any wine for sure. So, for example, like red wine, if you put it in a half bottle, ages faster. It'll taste different out of a Magnum. Champagne is the same. The half bottles, that brioche toastiness will come out a little bit more than it will in a 750. And then the salinity and the zippiness that you sometimes get, especially with Blanc de Blanc that's 100% Chardonnay, will show its surface more in a Magnum or 3 liter or whatever. And the larger the bottle, the longer you can age it. I don't recommend aging half bottles the same way that you can age 750s and above. Krug, for example, is no longer going to be making half bottles at all. So there's some brands like Dom Perignon doesn't make any half bottles, but Ruinart does. It just depends. It really just depends on the champagne house.
So we
Fascinating. And those are big, big, important decisions too. And in fact, at Guy Charlemagne, when I was there, um, the ladies were telling me, and Marie even showed the next iteration of the label
Hmm.
because dad and many of the dads in Champagne had a very dad approach to champagne labels.
We'll call
And
it very classic, and they're modernizing it a little bit, which is a good thing. And I think having a little bit of a female touch on it is also kind of fun.
yeah, and a little bit of symmetry across the cuvées as well
Yes.
will be good. And they've got a great story to tell, um, and it's pretty interesting what's happening in Champagne. Shruti, let me ask you because this is something I'm now got more curiosity on, and I'm trying to ask several people to get a more well-rounded answer. This one label says Champagne Guy Charlemagne Grand Cru.
Hmm.
What does Grand Cru mean?
So Grand Cru vineyards are super, super, super limited. There's different levels in Champagne. So there's Premier Cru, Grand Cru, and then there's no Cru. It's sort of like a village sort of thing. So Grand Cru really, it's like the terroir. It's a superior grade of the vineyard and the quality of that terroir. It's judged it's judged by criteria between appellations. I don't even know what exactly. A lot of the time, it's like the specific elevation or section of a vineyard, and that could be whether it's in Champagne, whether it's in Bordeaux, whether it's in Napa. It's this particular region that basically is, think of the three little pigs. It's just right, the one that's just right. Sunshine, soil, the way the sun hits, where it angles, that microclimate in between. And it's just always when they separately bottle or separately barrel that particular vineyard, it's always a showstopper. It's always the one year after year after year, and then that ends up being Grand Cru vineyard. And I think that's happened over time, and that's why they've been graded that way. And those vineyards have either decreased, have not changed, but they definitely haven't increased.
Hmm. And the way they used to pay the growers, they used to reward them based on their rating, right? The
Yes, there was a rate. I don't know if they still do that or if they do that in Champagne.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, recently they did eliminate the paying by rating because now you can negotiate what you're going to get paid based on the demand for your fruit
or
and
your
your
fruit, exactly. And there's only 17 Grand Crus in Champagne. There's like 30 something in Burgundy, but yeah, and it sounds like a lot, but it's really not.
those 17 Grand Crus apparently, and I'm trying to get more texture here, but apparently they were because they're Grand Cru villages, not necessarily vineyard
Vineyards,
designation.
correct. Yep.
And so the village was getting the Grand Cru status because it was close to the winemaking facilities. And
Correct.
that's where they got that Grand Cru. You're going to get paid the most because you're the closest. And so the closer you were to those centers, the more you got for your fruit. And so now that that's not necessarily the case, I'm wondering if they'll reassess that Grand Cru status at some point and maybe not take it away from the villages, but having it maybe applicable to vineyards, exposures, and things like that. Because there's a lot of non-southwest facing, Grand Cru.
Sure. Sure.
So it's a very interesting thing that I'm accumulating content around and hypothesizing around and just kind of asking experts, because I'd never heard that before until I got to Champagne, and that was kind of a revelation for me, that it was about your proximity more than the quality of your vineyard. And it makes sense because they were giving it away to that rating to the entire village. Well, if there are any questions, anything we brought up created, you have Shriti for another couple of minutes here, as long as her power holds up. I'd love
I
for
know,
you
I
to.
love rolling blackouts. It's so fun.
Is
I was
there,
asking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, because I was looking on up at the different ones that are carried. Do you guys, the Grand Cru Brut looks interesting.
Yeah, that's what we are tasting here.
Okay, yeah.
No, there's another one. It's a different label. It's
Vintage.
is it the vintage? Is that
Yes,
why?
it's vintage.
Yeah, and the
Mm.
label may or may not look much
The
like it.
same.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge that the ladies identified, is that their brand just wasn't uh, necessarily always looking.
Oh, that might be. And they don't have any, it's all Chardonnay. They don't have any that's 100% Pinot, right? That I can see.
Not this brand.
Not, yeah, no, because they're based in Limonil, so where they are, it's mostly Chardonnay grapes. That being said,
Gotcha.
they do make a rosé, but it's not exported out here. It's at the winery.
Is it lovely, the rosé? Probably, huh?
Yes, if you love rosé, it's quite lovely.
So we carry the single vineyard Coulmey, Le Coulmey.
Yes,
Coulmey.
and that's the vineyard that, yep, plus vintage. So it's vintage and single vineyard.
And then we have the same wine that we're tasting in half bottle and in 750. And this is the only half bottle we have in Champagne, for the purpose of this Zoom. And so it's only the half bottles I have are probably the only half bottles we'll have until they're gone. So if you like the half bottle size and you would like it at a great price, we have that available. You also have a 10% discount to use on any wines on the website tonight. So you can accumulate either of these. Now, I want you to think about this. We're tasting a small proprietor that's Grand Cru from Lemonil, 100% Chardonnay. And look at these prices, 65 or 35 for the half bottle. That price is
It's
probably
absurd, and it's not going to stay that for years down the road. Let me preface it that because, like I said, their neighbor across the street is Salon, and a bottle of Salon is $1,800. So
Yeah. I don't know if I even have Salon on the website right now. I do. I have the fourth. I have a
you've got a
$5,000.
Magnum, and it's a 99, but that's $5,000. Current release would be about 1,800 for a 750. But it's also 95 points. So see.
Yeah, look at that. But you got the same score.
So Ian, I was going to ask, and I put it on the chat, but the reason I'm asking is I just went to see A Complete Unknown at the theater. I had popcorn for dinner, and I had just a little bit of this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my head. What's the APV on champagne as compared to just regular still wines?
It's less usually, but it's
Really?
the bubbles
Okay.
that's hitting you. That's what it's doing. It's the bubbles that
Okay.
are hitting you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm very relaxed. This is lovely. So, I just wondered.
This is also a great way to relax.
Yes, it is.
Champagne does
So
enter your
question,
bloodstream a little faster. Just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
if I could ask a follow-on question on alcohol levels, over my career of wine tasting, alcohol levels have in general have crept up.
Yep.
Has the same been true in Champagne? I see this is 12 and a half. 30 years ago, would it have been 12 and a half as well? Would it
Yeah,
been like,
it would have been 12 and a half, sometimes maybe 11 and a half, but right around there. But yeah, Champagne has actually been able to stay closer to what they should, as opposed to other areas of the world that are creeping much higher. All of it is equated to global warming, but I think because of Champagne being able to, one, be blended, multiple facets that allow it to stay closer to that 12%, 12.5% range.
Interesting. Thank you.
Very, very good. I appreciate you very much, Trudy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I hope you enjoyed the champagne.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Absolutely.
It was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Ian, for putting on such a great seminar.
Well, it was wonderful to be able to chat with you. We do this every Wednesday, and I want to remind you, and I'm about to send out a note, and it's painful to send out notes right now because most of our audience is like, being held up with these fires.
Fires, yeah, they're a little worried.
Yeah, so but next week I'm doing a Zoom on some incredible dessert wines, and it's the hardest thing in the world to sell. I have a very small audience next week. Um, and but we're going for it. And I will have to drink the rest of every single dessert wine bottle that we're opening. But take a look at the wine list because we are really opening some fantastic examples. And even if you think you might not like dessert wine, I dare you to taste these next week and not enjoy what we're putting out there. I think I've got five or six, and it's a really beautiful lineup, not expensive, but very rich in content next week. And next week is my Burgundy dinner, which, in a 2005 fashion, we've had to move this dinner now to a new restaurant because our friends over at Cali Restaurant are closing. A Michelin star restaurant is closing in this world, and they're kind of rebranding their approach. They're going to take a few months and redesign the place, and their last day in business will be the day of our dinner. They said that we could do the dinner there, but it would be a little crazy. And I said, nah, we'll go over to the peninsula. So if you'd like to join us for an incredible night of Burgundy, DRC and friends, take a look at the wine list. A really special lineup. I still have 4 seats now for the dinner. And those usually go at the last minute, which drives my blood pressure up a little bit, but they will remain available. Thank you all. To those of you that are in and around LA, be safe out there, be careful, and maybe think about something you might be able to do to help somebody out. There's people that need help with animals. We're sending out an email tomorrow that has a lot of animal shelter contacts, that has places there. Right now, if you let's say you woke up tomorrow and you were being evacuated, you could do pound 211 on your cell phone, and they will answer the phone and help you find a place to go. And right now in Los Angeles, Airbnb is giving a week at a location away, so that you can find a place to stay. So 211 will help you find one of those Airbnbs as well. So just something to share with people as you're talking to them. It's going to be a really bad news cycle for a while. This is not going to slow down for at least another couple of days. I thought I saw rain clouds yesterday. I thought that would have been really nice, but it was the weirdest cloud formations I've ever seen around the mountains. They were like black, hugging the mountains, and they weren't fire clouds. They were rain clouds, but they were just on the mountains. And so the weather, when I woke up on January 1st, I looked at the weather forecast for 10 days in LA. You could see the temperature was going to be 70 degrees and not a cloud in the sky for 10 days in a row. And I looked at my wife and I said, wow, this is going to get windy. That was the first thing I thought, because when there's no clouds and it's the same temperature for a while, we get this high pressure and it creates this in vacuum. And that's what we've got. And just the winds then come, and they are wreaking havoc. 100-mile-an-hour winds blowing those fires across the city. And so there might be something else that we can say or do, but I'm always looking for suggestions and ideas. And just I hope everyone here remains safe, and I hope to see you all very soon. That's That's all I'll say for now. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Be well.